A stubborn billionaire refused to be touched by the nurse until she leaned closer and whispered one name into his ear, and that one name made his entire body go still. No one told her who he was. But the moment Ava stepped into the private hospital suite, she could feel it. The air was thicker, the tension sharper, and the man lying in the bed, rigid, cold, eyes like steel, looked like he'd rather die than ask for help. He was a billionaire, not just any billionaire, Colton Hayes, the reclusive tech titan worth more than the entire hospital 10 times over. He wasn't known for kindness. He was known for lawsuits, for buying companies just to shut them down, for interviews where he never smiled. He didn't do charity. He didn't do small talk. And now, after collapsing during a board meeting, he was lying in a hospital bed refusing to be touched. "I said no," he barked as Ava reached for his foreline. She didn't flinch. "You need antibiotics," she said calmly, her voice steady. "And fluids. Your fever's still climbing." "I don't care. Get another nurse. Or no nurse at all." She stood still for a second, looking at the monitors behind him. Beep, beep, beep. Steady, but shallow. He was strong, but breaking slowly. Ava had seen it before. The kind of pride that wouldn't ask for help even when the body begged for it. Usually in older patients. Lonely ones. But Colton wasn't old. Maybe late 30s. Early 40s. Fit. Sharp. But there was something about his stillness that told her he was tired of everything, tired of people, noise, being touched, being pitted. "Mr. Hayes," she said, softer now. "I'm not here to argue with you. I'm here because your body is shutting down. You've got a serious infection, and if we don't start treatment, you could lose more than a night of sleep." "I said no," he repeated, each word clipped like a knife. The other nurse beside Ava looked nervous. "Maybe we should get Dr. Patel." But Ava didn't move. Instead, she stepped closer. Then she leaned down, and very quietly, she whispered a single name into Colton's ear. His whole body went still. The air changed. His jaw tightened, but his eyes flickered like someone had opened a door he'd boarded shut long ago. He didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared ahead like she'd just dropped a ghost in the room. Ava didn't explain. She didn't need to. She stepped back, picked up the foreline again, and started preparing it without another word. And this time, Colton didn't stop her. Not one sound, not one protest. The other nurse looked confused, but Ava didn't explain. She just kept working, calm, focused, efficient. Once the line was in, she placed the blanket over his legs again and adjusted the monitor screen. She didn't look at him, but she could feel it, his eyes following her now. When she finally turned to leave, he spoke. His voice wasn't cold this time. "How do you know that name?" Ava paused, her back still to him. She didn't turn around. "I knew someone you used to care about," she said softly. "And I made a promise a long time ago. To help you if I ever could." He didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally his voice cracked just slightly. "Are you her sister?" Ava turned. Her face said everything. Colton's expression softened, just barely. "That was a long time ago," he murmured. Ava nodded. "I know. I haven't heard her name in 15 years. I never stopped saying it," Ava replied. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was heavy. Real. Full of words neither of them could say yet. Ava stepped toward the door. "I'll check back in an hour." Colton didn't stop her. Didn't say thank you, but as the door closed, he turned his head toward the window, and for the first time in a long time, he looked like someone who might want to be saved. Colton didn't sleep that night. Not really. He stared at the ceiling, at the 4 drips slowly pushing life back into his veins, and at the shadows on the wall that stretched and shifted like ghosts he thought he'd buried. But they were awake now. And one of them wore a nurse uniform and whispered a name he hadn't let himself say for 15 years. Elena. That name used to be sunlight in his life. Back when his world was quiet and unremarkable. Before the money. Before the empires. Before he started trading people for progress. Elena had been the only softness in his hard, calculated path. She had laughter in her voice and pain in her bones, but she carried both like music. He remembered her long braids, her chipped nail polish, the way she used to draw stars on napkins at the diner they both worked at in college. He also remembered the day she disappeared. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone, and now her sister was standing in his hospital room, steady hands and steady eyes, treating him like a patient when she had every right to treat him like a villain. Ava. She had the same mouth, the same shape to her jaw, but her eyes weren't as gentle. They were sharp, watchful. She had seen things, carried things. He didn't know what had happened to Elena. He didn't dare ask. Not yet. But the question burned a hole in his throat every time he thought of Ava whispering that name. Why now? Why her? In the morning, she returned. Quiet as always. Clipboard in hand, her shoes soft against the tile. She didn't speak when she entered. Just checked his vitals, changed his bag, and scribbled notes. She moved like someone who knew how to carry silence without letting it weigh her down. Colton watched her the whole time. Why didn't you tell me who you were? He asked finally. She looked up calm. Would it have changed anything? Probably, he admitted. That's why I didn't, she replied. He studied her face. You look like her. I know. He hesitated. She was important to me. Ava didn't smile. She didn't soften. You were important to her too. The sentence felt like a needle. Quick, deep, precise. Colton sat up a little. What happened to her? Ava's pen paused mid-scribble. She didn't look at him. She left college early. Moved back home. Started taking care of our father when his health went downhill. He passed 2 years later. Then she got sick. Colton's stomach dropped. Sick. Lupus, Ava said flatly. It hit fast. And hard. We didn't have insurance. He blinked. But she was so full of life. She still was, Ava said, finally meeting his gaze. Even in pain. She smiled. She drew stars for the kids in the hospital. He stared at her. You mean she became a nurse, Ava said. She never stopped helping people. Even when she was running on half a lung. He exhaled shakily. I didn't know. She didn't want you to, Ava replied. She used to say, if you made it big, she didn't want to be the one who showed up asking for anything. She wanted to protect your dream. Colton's voice cracked. She was my dream. Ava swallowed. Her face didn't change, but her eyes glistened. Then you should have stayed. He had no answer for that. Just silence. A heavy, guilty silence. I was going to, he finally said. I had a plan. A ring. But the company, everything started moving so fast. I told her I needed 6 months. That's all. Just 6 months to make something real, and then I'd come back for her. Ava's expression didn't soften. And? He looked down. I didn't call. I didn't write. I got scared. I told myself I'd ruin her life if I brought her into mine. So you left her to wonder, Ava whispered. I left her, he said. And I never forgave myself. Ava nodded. Neither did she. They sat in the stillness that followed. No monitors beeped. No footsteps echoed. It was the kind of stillness that comes only after truth is spoken. After a moment, Ava stepped closer and checked his blood pressure. Her hands were gentle, efficient. She adjusted his pillow and placed the call button back where he could reach it. I'm not here for revenge, she said quietly. Or to haunt you. I know. I'm here because she asked me to be, Ava continued. She made me promise. If I ever saw you again, I'd take care of you. Even if you didn't recognize me. Even if you didn't want it. Colton blinked, his throat tightening. Why would she? Because she loved you, Ava said. Even when it hurt. Even when you didn't come back. He turned his face to the wall, unable to look at her. The weight in his chest was unbearable. Ava picked up her clipboard again. You need rest. He nodded. Will you stay? She paused. For a while. He closed his eyes. The ache in his heart was louder than the ache in his body. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Over the next few days, things changed. Slowly, quietly, Colton's temperature came down. The infection responded to treatment. His body started to heal. But something deeper started healing too. Ava didn't talk much about Elena after that. She didn't need to. Her presence alone reminded him of everything he'd lost and everything he might still have the chance to rebuild. One afternoon, he watched her laugh with a little girl in the hallway, a young patient dragging an 4-pole and wearing a superhero cape. Ava tied it tighter, whispered something, and the child beamed as she ran back to her room. Colton's chest tightened. She didn't even notice him watching. Later that evening, he spoke. "Would it be wrong to ask you about her?" Ava pulled up a chair. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," he said. "Her last years. What she liked. What she hated. What made her laugh." And so she told him about the books she still read, the sketchbooks full of constellations she never stopped drawing, the way she made jokes when her joints ached, the way she sang lullabies to elderly patients who were too scared to sleep, the way she whispered Colton's name in her dreams sometimes, the way she never stopped hoping he'd find his way back. By the time Ava finished, Colton's eyes were wet. "She died thinking I forgot her," he whispered. "No," Ava said. "She died hoping you'd remember." He didn't speak again that night. He didn't need to. But when Ava left his room, she passed the nurse's station, pulled out her phone, and opened a folder labeled E. Inside were scanned letters, old sketches, voice recordings. She stared at the screen for a long time. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She sent a message to Colton. "If you really want to remember her, I'll show you how." The files Ava sent him that night opened something inside Colton that had been locked away for far too long. He stared at the sketches first. Drawings of stars, but not just the ones in the sky, ones she imagined. Constellations with names she'd made up. Hope's hands, the quiet smile, the waiting door. Every one of them was dated, and next to most was a short note. He said he'd come back. I still believe him. Or, even if he forgot me, I never will forget him. Colton read each one with trembling hands, his heart tearing with every line. Then he opened the audio recordings. He expected to hear her voice faint and tired. But what he heard was light. She laughed often. She sang softly. And in one clip, she told a story to someone, Ava maybe, about the man she once loved. She didn't name him. She didn't need to. He was always so driven, so focused. But he never realized that the most important things in life aren't earned. They're held. And sometimes we drop what matters because we're chasing what doesn't. By the time the last clip ended, Colton wasn't the same man. He couldn't be, because now the silence he'd used to protect himself felt unbearable, and the fortune he'd once worshipped felt hollow. The next morning, Ava walked into his room to find him sitting upright, dressed in regular clothes for the first time, the hospital gown folded neatly beside the bed. His eyes looked clearer, not completely healed, but trying. "I want to do something," he said before she could even greet him. Ava raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "I want to start a foundation. In her name." She stayed quiet. "Something for nurses, for patients who can't afford treatment, for women like her, people who give more than they ever receive." Ava's arms folded. "Is this a guilt thing?" "No," he said. "This is a love thing." She didn't smile. Not yet. But she nodded once, slowly. "Then you better do it right." They worked together for the next several months. Quietly. No press. No big headlines. Ava kept her shifts at the hospital. Colton showed up to every meeting, not as a figurehead but as a man rebuilding something from the ashes. They named it the Elena Grace Project. And soon it became more than a name. It became a movement. Grants, scholarships, mobile care units, support for hospice nurses, a hotline for families. Every flyer featured a single quote, "Kindness doesn't need permission." The first donation came from Colton himself. 10 million. Then came others. Doctors who remembered Elena. patients who had once held her hand, nurses who said she inspired them to stay when they wanted to quit. Ava watched it all happen with a quiet sense of wonder. She never thought her sister's memory would stretch that far. But somehow, it did. As the seasons turned, Colton and Ava grew closer. Not just through work, but through something deeper. He showed her his world. Not the boardrooms and business dinners, but the lonely corners. The empty penthouse with floor-to-ceiling windows and silence so loud it hurt. He let her see his journals, where he had begun to write letters to Elena. Letters she would never read. But Ava did, and she cried with him. Sometimes they walked the park trail where he used to meet Elena. He showed her the bench where they once shared peanut butter sandwiches because they couldn't afford takeout. He confessed that after Elena disappeared, he sat on that bench every Friday for a year, hoping she'd show up. She never did. He whispered one evening, the wind soft in the trees. She was sick by then, Ava said, but she never stopped hoping you'd be there. One night, Colton invited Ava over to the penthouse. Just dinner. Just thank you. Or so he said. But when she arrived, the table was set for two. Candles, music, and a small glass frame in the center, Elena's first constellation sketch. This was her favorite, he said, the one she called the unfinished path. She said it reminded her that life doesn't always end where we think it will. Ava looked at him. And where do you think it's ending now? He stepped closer. I don't want it to end. Not again. Not without saying what I should have said to her. And what I need to say to you. She stared at him. I love you, he said. Not because of who you remind me of, but because of who you are. Strong, honest, unshakable. You didn't just bring me back to her memory. You brought me back to life. Ava's breath caught. Colton? I'm not asking for a fairy tale, he said. I'm just asking for a chance to walk this path with someone who knows where it began, and who still believes in where it can go. She stepped forward. Her hands reached for his, and when she whispered, yes, he closed his eyes and held her like something sacred. Months later, the Elena Grace Center opened its first physical clinic. Ava cut the ribbon. Colton stood beside her. They didn't make speeches. They didn't need to. Behind them was a wall of stars, each one named after a nurse who had made a difference in someone's life. At the very top was one word. Elena. They still visit her grave once a month. Colton brings flowers. Ava brings updates. They tell her about the children receiving care, the nurses getting full scholarships, the people who are alive because of her name, and sometimes, when the breeze is gentle and the trees rustle just right, they swear they can feel her smile. Colton never rebuilt the company the same way again. He rebuilt it slower, kinder. He listened more, laughed more, let go of the numbers that used to own him, and one day, long after the first clinic opened, he placed a ring in Ava's hand. Not flashy, not heavy, just a simple gold band with one word engraved inside. Grace, she cried. And then she said yes. Their wedding was small, a garden, a violin, a sky full of stars, and as they danced, Ava looked up and whispered, you came back, not for her, but for yourself, and now for us. Colton held her tighter and whispered, she led me here, but you made me stay. If this story of healing, memory, and redemption moved your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional storytelling, because sometimes the name we whisper becomes the life we rebuild.